What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today we are going to be doing a head-to-head battle between the Spyderco Delica and the Benchmade Bugout. I had talked about doing this for a long time, and I'm gonna do my best to make sense of this. So essentially, what I've done here is I have divided the comparisons here into different categories. For the people who, for the most part, people are going to want to know functionally, which one is better for what, things like that. So the first category is going to be function. This category is divided up into subcategories of cutting performance, deployment, carry or ease of carry, weight, ease of disassembly, durability, the usable cutting edge, and ergonomics. The second category is going to be non-functional. This is going to be just me, giving my ideas on things that really don't have anything to do with performance, but they are things that I consider and other people consider when they purchase a pocket knife. And then the final category will be value, basically just what you get, the materials that you're getting for the money that you're paying. So we'll go ahead and start off here and take some measurements. Not going to be any size comparisons here because both of these knives have been thoroughly reviewed on their own. If you want to check out those reviews, please feel welcome to. I do have those on my channel. First up, Spyderco Delica. Overall length coming in at about 7 inches. Blade length coming in at about 3 inches with a cutting edge of about 2.5. Now, let's do the Bugout. Overall length of the Bugout, we've got 7.5 inches, looks to be. And your blade length is about 3, just shy of 3.5. It's like 3.3. Usable cutting edge, about 3.25, just shy of 3.25. So, interesting. Let's go ahead and do cutting performance here first. Now, you'll notice that I have the coated version of the Bugout and the ZDP 189 version of the Delica. Now, we're basically just going to be judging these purely off of edge geometry, and this one I know has a DLC coating, so I can't 100% judge, how it feels there, because that's going to create extra resistance during cut. Go ahead and do one real quick. Excellent. Go ahead and do one with the Delica. Honestly, the difference between the two feels like the only resistance that I'm feeling is simply what the DLC coating on the Bugout is creating. The friction there is any friction that I'm feeling on the Bugout is created likely from that DLC coating. They do have a version of this, the blue version that's not DLC coated. I would imagine that version is not going to have that excess wear or feeling of wear as you're cutting. So truthfully, both of those feel about the same in terms of cutting performance. Both blades are incredibly thin. The starting thickness is something like 0.1, 0.11, perhaps even 0.09. You can see there on the Bugout, especially, it is very thin. So what it comes down to on the cutting edge is just both of these are ultra fine slicers. In terms of which one is going to glide through material better, you're going to be hard pressed to get down to an actual point where you can definitively say which one of those is going to do it. But I'm not sure. I mean, at that point, it may not even be worth arguing about. Both of these are going to cut just fine for light EDC tasks. Let's talk about deployment. So I think this is going to be an obvious one in terms of which knife I'm going to give this category to. The axis lock and the thumb studs are just going to make for an easier deployment. This knife is just a little bit easier to manipulate. Jeez, I can hear Ricky laughing at me trying to flick that thing backwards. But this is going to be easier to manipulate because you don't have the resistance of the lockback. The lockback creates a situation where there's multiple movements and multiple hand positions that you have to adjust your hand in until you can actually, deploying it is basically limited to this. Putting it away with one hand is limited to this movement. Whereas on the Bugout, you can simply do that. Fire it out with a thumb stud, pull back on the axis lock, and whip it shut. So as far as the deployment, I'm going to have to give that to the Bugout. Let's talk about carry. The pocket clip on the Bugout is this little tiny deep carry pocket clip, which I actually really like. I really, really like that pocket clip. It's very minimal. It carries deep. It's pretty straightforward. Then again, I also like the pocket clip on the Spyderco Delica. Both are going to be easy to pull from your pocket. The Spyderco Delica is going to give you a little bit more purchase in your hand, but the Benchmade Bugout is going to, I would say, conceal more of the knife. And it's also just going to be more minimalist in appearance anyway. As far as, what sort of position it puts you in when you're carrying, we'll go over that more in ergonomics. It's going to be a different category, but the reason, both of these are good is what I'm saying, but the reason I'm going to give it to the Bugout, I guess I kind of spoiled it there, is because when they're in your pocket, the overall profile between the two knives, the real estate that's being taken up by the knife here, you can see the Bugout is just making a smaller footprint in general, despite it actually being a larger knife. It's got a very thin profile. So again, I'm going to have to give carry to the Bugout. Ergonomics. Let's talk about ergonomics. Straightforward handle on the Bugout. Very comfortable. Jimping up top. Nice, just sort of a classic. This is a very classic handle shape. It's nothing flashy. It's doing the trick, and that's about it. That minimalist pocket clip creates for a situation where you don't have a hot spot, and that's nice. On the Delica, you have a little bit more of a form-fitting handle, more of a thumb ramp. Not quite a forward choil, but a space to put your finger up top. I know with everybody, it's going to come, a lot of times it is going to come down to preference. This pocket clip, you could argue, creates a hot spot in the right-hand position, not so much in the left. Truthfully, the one, like if I were to close my eyes and pick these up, the one that I would say that my hand melts into better is going to be the Spyderco. So for me, it's going to be, the Delica, but for you, it may not be. I should also mention, on pocket clip or on carry, the Delica does have the option to be four-way positionable, truly ambidextrous. So tip up, tip down, left or right-handed carry. It's truly going to function for all people. So now, despite that, though, I know that that's a big deal. But as far as ease or comfort of carry, I'm still going to give it to that last category. I still would give it to the Bugout because you can mount it on the left-hand side for tip up. And it's also truly ambidextrous given the position of the axis lock. So those all still stand. Now, usable cutting edge. This is going to be a quick one. The Benchmade Bugout simply has a more usable cutting edge. The Spyderco Delica has a super functional blade shape. It's ground very, very well, and so is the Bugout. But the Bugout just has a more usable edge. You can see there. It doesn't matter what angle I do this video. The Bugout just has a more usable cutting edge, so we'll give that there. Let's talk about ease of disassembly. Truthfully, I think both of these knives are going to stink trying to disassemble them. I have heard that backlocks are just a pain to get back together. Of course, your experience with these types of things, it's going to vary from person to person. But I've heard that this is difficult. Now, I know from experience that taking apart an axis lock is a true pain in the rear. I hate taking apart axis lock knives, and I really hate these itty-bitty little Torx heads that Benchmade puts on their the handle. I hate those. I have stripped so many of those, and I think many people are going to share that feeling of pain when it comes to disassembly. So, truthfully, I mean, both of these aren't going to be fun, but as far as which one's going to be easier to disassemble, I think the Delica looks to be one that's just got an easier, all the way around. It's just got less parts. It's got less things to worry about flying out or, exploding out of the knife as soon as tension is released from something as you unscrew things. So I think the Delica is actually going to win in terms of ease of disassembly. Okay, just to bring everybody up to speed, as far as cutting performance goes, we're at a tie. For deployment, I gave it to the Bugout. For carry, I gave it to the Bugout. For ergonomics, I gave it to the Delica. For usable cutting edge, I gave it to the Bugout. And for ease of disassembly, I gave it to the Delica. We have two categories left, weight and durability. we're at a weight between these two guys where it really doesn't matter, but I know 100% that this is an important category to everybody, so let's go over it. The Bugout weighs 1.8 ounces. The Delica weighs somewhere around 2.5. I have an official channel scale coming that David is having custom made for me, so soon I will be able to weigh these knives instead of just throwing out my approximations, but that is the case. The Delica weighs roughly a little more than half an ounce more than the Bugout. The Bugout simply weighs less. There's not really much more to say there. So as far as weight, I'm going to have to give it to the Bugout. Now, the final category that I have listed in function is durability. And this is also going to be an easy category to talk about. The way that these are constructed, you've got FRN on both. On the Delica, you've got FRN scales. You've got a lock back that goes down to about 3/4 or 2/3 of the knife, and then inside you've got full countersunk steel liners. They extend all the way to the back of the knife. The lock back serves as sort of a backspacer and also a means of structural integrity. That mixed with the fact that you've got full steel liners, not only it gives this knife a little bit extra heft, but that extra half an ounce versus the Bugout creates a much more solid feeling between the two. I cannot stress that enough. The Bugout, to me, I talked about this in my review of it, it feels unbelievably cheap. And that's because the liner on the inside, I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, it's like a 1/3 cartridge liner. It only extends to about right here. From here back, this is hollowed out FRN, and you have a very, can you hear that? A very cheap feeling and sounding knife. The Bugout, the Delica, still has the cheapness of FRN, but it doesn't sound hollow and it doesn't sound cheap. And you can feel it. I mean, as far as durability goes, not only just in aesthetics or the feel of it, but I can confidently say that, that coupled with the fact that you've got an axis lock, which unfortunately has a history of omega springs breaking. Omega springs in and of themselves are kind of a cause for concern over time, because if they break, then you don't have a functional axis lock. If you don't have a functional axis lock, then you don't have a functionally locking knife. So the fact that the Bugout feels cheaper, sounds cheaper, and actually doesn't have as much steel reinforcement in the handle, and has a locking system that isn't 100% notorious for failure, like the Omega Springs, but it is something to consider. I think the Bugout wins hands down in durability. You just have a more reliable locking system. You have more reinforcement with the blade, with the handle. I'm not going to be nearly as worried. If I was working 3-4 stories up and I accidentally dropped one of these knives and it landed on concrete, which one do I think is more likely to crack or break or have something go wrong with it? The Bugout, definitely. I honestly don't think anything would happen to the Delica if it were dropped from 3 stories up. I honestly don't think anything would happen to it. I think the Delica is shockingly durable considering how small and light it is and what it's made out of. So I'm definitely going to give durability to the Delica. So I tried to do this and just jump into it so that my personal bias wouldn't get in the way. But truthfully, for function, the Bugout is actually winning in terms of how many categories it has taken, though durability is a really big category. But the Bugout won deployment, it won carry, it won usable edge, it won weight, and the Delica won durability, ease of disassembly, and ergonomics. So it's 3-4 with a tie on cutting performance. Let's talk about fidget factor in the non-functional category. If you're here just to hear function and value, you can go ahead and skip ahead to later in the video, because right now I'm just going to talk about little, more, appearance things, aesthetics things. The two categories here are appearance and fidget factor. So as far as fidget factor goes, the Benchmade Bugout definitely has that more, if you're going to sit around and mess with this thing and, you're wanting a knife that's fun to play with, the Benchmade Bugout has the axis lock. The Delica, it's really just going to be like this. And I'll tell you from personal experience, Sitting around and playing with the Delica is a good way to cut your hand because you have to move your or reposition your hands to sort of be ready when you disengage it. If you're down here and you push that thing down and you're at the wrong angle or you try to whip it shut, guess what? That blade is coming down on your finger. And I have done that before, twice. I've cut little chunks out of my fingers from doing that. You also have to make sure your hands are out of the way when it snaps back into place. Because this isn't a detent locking knife, or sort as far as like when the knife comes or shuts into place, you can see there, even with the axis lock not really being a detent setup, it closes much lower. Whereas on the Delica, it's like right here, and it will snap shut. Anyways, as far as fidget factor goes, I'm definitely going to give that one to the Bugout. It's just a little bit more fun to play with, despite it feeling kind of cheap. Appearance and available color schemes. So the nice thing about the Delica is that you can get it in just about any color that you want, unless you want the ZDP 189 version, in which case, as far as I'm aware, it only comes in this hunter green. Fortunately for me, I like this dark hunter or forest green. It's very pleasing to me. So I'm really happy with that. But if you're not a green, type of person and you want blue or you want coyote or you want gray or something like that, you have to go with the VG10 model. And the VG10 model is not bad. We're going to talk about that under value. But you have more options, but with those options comes kind of some restriction. So or some restrictive barriers. So with the Bugout, you have two different color setups. You've got this sort of refried bean and gunmetal with brass, which is actually kind of pleasing. It's a weird, if you were to close your eyes and imagine that, it sounds awful. And maybe some of you think this looks awful. But if you don't like this, there is, of course, the one with the blue FRN and the blue thumb studs and the satin blade, which is a little bit more pleasing. I really wish that this knife would be in their custom shop program and that we had the option to add G10 in different colors, different color thumb studs, different color standoffs, different blade coatings, blade seals. That would be awesome. Really, I would really like that. But unfortunately, you don't have that. So, between the two, as far as like which one you have more options with, it's the Delica. But if I'm being perfectly honest, the Delica is one of the ugliest knives I've ever seen. I hate how the Delica looks. It's so weird. The Bugout has a much more classic knife look to it. And it just, I don't know, it's just more straightforward. Both of them have a functional design. The Delica is absolutely 100% shaped to fit your hand while cutting. And the Bugout is too, but it's just in a different way. It just looks better. So, unfortunately, with the Delica being one that has more options, but the Bugout just looking better, in general, for me, I'm going to have to call that one a tie. So, as far as the non-functional stuff, the Bugout's going to win just because it won one category, fidget factor. Okay, now let's talk about value. Materials with the Bugout. This is the final category, by the way. With the Bugout, you've got FRN and S30V. With the Delica at base, you have VG10 and you've got FRN. Now, if you upgrade the Delica to the ZDP 189 version, you've got FRN and ZDP. Now, both of them do have steel in there reinforcing a little bit, but there is more reinforcement with the Delica. What I'm going to do now is sort of expand on where the value is going to come from between all of the available models between these two. Okay, so again, there are only two versions of the Benchmade Bugout. Both use S30V, both use FRN, and both have a tiny 1/3 cartridge liner made of steel reinforcing the handles. The base price of the Benchmade Bugout, if you go with the blue version of this guy, you're going to pay about $119. If you want this version with the DLC, you're going to pay about $135. For S30V and for this cheap filling FRN, that's pretty steep. I don't really like that. When I reviewed the Bugout, I think I said, the base one isn't that bad at $119. Truthfully, it kind of is. I really wish this had G10, even if it did add some weight. But that's more of a preference thing. So as far as value goes, I'm not really seeing it for the Bugout. Now, as far as the Delica goes, I'm torn because the base model in VG10, VG10 is, you know, it's okay. It's a stainless steel that holds a mediocre edge and is mediocre in terms of toughness, but it's very stainless. It used to be kind of a bigger deal. It's really not anymore. But you can get that in, you know, like I said, in a multitude of different colors, but you're going to pay $75-ish for that. You know, sometimes you can find them for less on Amazon. This ZDP 189 version is a massive step up in performance. ZDP technically being a stainless steel at 20% chromium. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I get my steels mixed up. I think it has crazy high chromium, but also crazy high carbon, which makes it confusing as a steel. You know, is it stainless? Is it going to resist corrosion? It seems to be holding up just fine, though I haven't really used it very much. But it has amazing cutting performance. In terms of edge retention, it's somewhere up in the M420CV category with, you know, I'm going to guess it's got corrosion resistance slightly better than D2. D2 is not quite a stainless steel, but it's hovering around there. So, you know, it's a steel that you'd want to keep a light coating of oil on every now and then, but you probably still don't have to baby it. I think ZDP 189 is fairly tough as well, making it a very well-rounded and very good EDC steel. Now, I get this knife on Amazon for 95 bucks. I see them going on Blade HQ for about 110, so let's say between 95 and 110. As far as value goes, it's beating the Bugout 100%. For what you're getting reinforced steel liners, you're getting FRN, you're getting ZDP 189, you know, this version of it. In that, you know, for what I'm getting there, it's definitely beating the Bugout in value. So I'm going to give that to the Delica. So we're at the point where I'm going to be coming to my final conclusion here. And, you know, what I've added up here in my attempt to be fully unbiased and give you guys my honest opinion when I break down, you know, a knife in all of these different categories that I really care about, you know, it looks like what we've come up with. I'll count real quick again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 categories, 1 by the Bugout. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 categories, 1 by the Delica, if my count's correct. And the other 2, cutting performance and appearance and available colors, and well, one of those is a functional thing, one of them is a non-functional thing. Those are both ties. So by my own standards, the Bugout has more advantages. So I'm forced to come to the conclusion with this video that with the way that I have set it up, that the Bugout actually does win the battle between these two, which is sad because if I'm being completely transparent and honest with you guys, my gut feeling between these two knives is that I like the Delica better. I just do, but that's me, and that proves that personal preference with people is, geez, I'm saying a lot of words that begin with P. That personal preference sometimes is going to be an overwhelming factor. You know, sometimes it is just as simple as reaching down and picking them both up and going, you know what, I don't like that. I like this one. Or, you know what, I don't like this one. I don't like lockbacks. I like this one. This one feels better. I like that it's so light. Some people feel that way, you know, so I wanted to just do a truthfully unbiased matchup and battle these two because these two are some of the greatest, or at least the most famous, everyday carry options. And here's the other thing I want you guys to remember. Whether you pick the Delica or the Bugout, like let's say you're watching this video because you have just been, you know, trying to figure out for so long, I don't know, do I want the Bugout, do I want the Delica? You know, what do I want to do here? I can't figure it out. Let's say that's actually why you're watching this video. It does not matter which one of these you pick. Both of them are going to do an excellent job in an EDC roll. They're both amazing knives in that category. Me personally, I don't like how cheap that feels. I trust this one a lot more, but it's super ugly and this one's not. You know, like it's little weird things like that. But if it were me, I mean, and it's not even like my initial, like my gut instinct, it's not even close. I 10 times over would pick the Delica over the Bugout. But hey, we have to adhere to the rules that I've laid out in this battle. So as far as this battle goes, the Bugout is the winner. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would like to do more of these. This was fun. It's kind of fun to like dig into, despite like what my gut instinct is. It's fun to like set up a competition and categories that me personally, I would take into consideration and find out which one actually scores more points that way. Because in this case, as I said, the Bugout scored more points despite it not being a knife that I would carry. So this was fun. So I'd like to keep doing this. If you guys want me to keep doing this with other knives, I really would love that. I want to do the Hinderer versus the Inkosi. I'd kind of like to do the Griptilian versus the Mannix, and definitely more in the future. So if you like this and you were entertained by it, or you felt like you got something out of it, then definitely, leave a like and let me know in the comments section. But anyways, if you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel, because there is definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.